Greetings fellow mammals, you voted again. So today the question is the LCMG still S tier? And why is this my recommended setup? As usual, let's begin with the time to kill charts. Small disclaimer before we can look at the funny colored lines. Since the LCMG has access to the short barrel, we will only take a look at the time to kills with that equipped, because it is simply the best barrel attachment in the game and you should use it whenever it's available for a weapon. Okay, so let's start with close combat, just like always. Very good time to kill. This can easily hold up with a lot of SMGs and ARs too. Let's see if the other ammo types are as impressive. Standard ammo. By now this should seem familiar. First range gets extended, overall fewer steps and better performance in the middle to long range, but due to the lower rate of fire, a bit worse at some distances and especially up close. Now we get to high power. Even fewer range steps, even more consistent performance for mid to long range, but also even lower rate of fire and therefore time to kill. The odd one out for last, subsonic. The LCMG is one of those weapons where subsonic struggles to find a purpose. It sits somewhere in between standard and high power, but because this gun has access to the short barrel, you cannot really benefit from the stealth setup, because by doing so you would lose out on performance by a lot. And added onto that issue, the LCMG only gets access to the small suppressors, so you can't even do the full stealth build, which then leaves subsonic in a very unappealing spot. There really isn't any setup that makes it feel particularly useful. Let's summarize our findings here. Close combat is simply great, standard is okay, high power seems fitting for its role, and subsonic is just eh. The rest of the setup could remind you a lot of the M5A3 episode, because similar to that gun, the LCMG too has a shitload of attachment options at hand. Well, let's go through them. The barrel section provides almost anything you could wish for, except the big suppressors. Obviously we take the short barrel by default, but then we also have access to the long one, which we will also carry along. And for the third slot we'll take the wrapped suppressor. What about the underbarrel section? Well, here we encounter a recurring guest, the master key shotgun. Unfortunately, the LCMG is one of 3 guns where the master key is still buggy. If you want more info on that, you can watch my video explaining that issue here. The link is also in the description. In short, because we want the AP launcher and the smoke launcher, and we want to use those quite often, equipping the master key will be quite annoying and we want to avoid that. And the LCMG, especially with the short barrel, suffers a tiny bit with wonky spread anyways. For that reason, I recommend putting the LWG grip into the first slot. For those of you that prefer to hip fire, you can take the LS1 laser instead. And then, because we are still talking about an LMG here, there is also the bipod. The bipod really is a no-brainer, because it comes with 0 downsides, apart from undeploying itself whenever you get revived, which is quite honestly fucking annoying if you ask me. But I won't judge this attachment too much, because my playstyle simply does not comply with a bipod. So if your playstyle somewhat resembles mine, which my buddy likes to describe as a jumping crack monkey, then I can't really recommend the bipod. Just use the grip or laser. Last and also least, the sights. Red dot, thermal, 4x switchable. Whenever this triad combination is available, I will always try and choose those. But you should use the scopes that work for you. Try them out, see what you like. Oh, almost forgot about ammo. Well, to be fair, I thought it's somewhat obvious. Close combat by default, standard as backup, and high power for really desperate times. But to be honest, if you do end up carrying along the bipod, combining that with the high magnification scope, long barrel and high power ammo makes for a somewhat useful long range setup. So maybe some of you will like that. That's it for the loadout. So what about that S tier placement? Different to the M5A3, the LCMG sits very comfortably in S tier, and even though the master key is unfortunately still buggy, this will not bring down its ranking. The time to kill is good, recoil is fine, the attachment options are probably the most extensive you can get out of all the guns. Not 100% sure about that, but it has to be at least in the top 3, and simply having the AP launcher lifts this thing up by one whole tier by itself, to be honest. The LCMG is still S tier. Hopefully the master key will get fixed someday, and a little buff for subsonic couldn't hurt either. But apart from that, this is another starter weapon that has close to no competition in its niche, which is nice. Personal note at the end here. Even though objectively this is a great weapon, for me it does not work that well, because LMGs have a longer sprint to fire delay than SMGs or even ARs. That does make a lot of sense for game balance, of course, and that is exactly the reason why LMGs in general do not really work well with my playstyle. That slight delay before you can fire is an absolute pain for any aggressive playstyle. But for the sake of these videos, I cannot let this cloud my judgment, because it's not the fault of the gun or even a bug, but an intended game design choice, and a correct one at that. If you give people like me a 200 round, short barrel, master key, AP launcher, smoke launcher weapon that has no downsides compared to assault rifles, what would be the point of even having those in the first place? Anyhow, give this video a like and subscribe if you want to see more of these breakdowns. Next up is the G57. Interesting choice, I have to say. I thought we would see sidearms last, but okay, time for some sidearm only recording sessions. How enticing. But that's it for today. I will see you on the battlefield. Sorrow out.